Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Annie Cole. U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff policies have caused major disruptions to the global economy. And as we know, the Trump administration has granted a 90-day pause period for reciprocal tariffs. At this point of time, it will come to an end on July 8. Now, the major question is, how do we together respond to this tariff storm? Joining us today is Dr. Wang Jiann-chyuan, Vice President of Chung-Hua Institution for Economic Research. Dr. Wang holds a PhD degree of economics from Purdue University, specializing and focusing on industrial economics and technology policy. Now, in today's Taiwan Talks, we will analyze the impact of President Trump's tariff policies on a global situation. At the same time, he will also share with us his perspectives on Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan alliance, positioning them as the core partners of U.S. reindustrialization. Now, lastly, he will also offer a solution from Taiwan's standpoint to address the challenges posed by Trump's tariffs. So, Dr. Wang, it's great to have you here with us on the show.
Okay, Annie and audience, it's also a great pleasure for me to join the talks.
Thank you so much. Now, before we begin, we would like to first take a look at the global economic situation. From this table, according to a report from the OECD, Trump's trade policies have not only caused a global economic slowdown, but also severely impact the U.S. itself. The OECD has revised its 2025 global economic growth forecast for the second time this year. As you can see, lowers from 3.1% in March to 2.9%. The impact on the U.S. particularly is more severe, with the forecast U.S. economic growth rate for 2025 dropping to 1.6%. China's economic growth is expected to reach a 4.7%. So, Dr. Wang, based on this table that we just mentioned earlier, there is a huge gap between the economic growth that we're seeing between the U.S. and also for China. What is your perspective on this?
Oh, okay. I think because this is basic because of the tariff policy,
Right.
because Trump's tariff policy imposed a lot of uncertainty for the economic growth, especially in China. Is that because they have been bothering by the property bubbles and as well as some of local government local government debt crisis. So the internal demand is weak, but also many works is that because of the U.S. Tariff wars that will hurt the exports. So the internal demand and external demand both weak. So I think the economic growth rate downgrade is expected. And for the U.S. is because right now it's the U.S. economy is on the downturn situation because of excess saving, because of the government support from the COVID-19 has been exhausted. And the family spending has been diminishing as well. And also the unemployment rate is also picking up. So this is not a good situation for the states. And making it worse is that Trump's U.S. Tariff policy, because of the tariff policy, probably allows the inflation. And inflation is that will make the Federal Reserves hesitate to lower interest rate. So I think the U.S. economy, because of the high interest rate, will make the economy slow down.
So you also definitely probably think that in the long run, this tariff will only cause a detrimental cost to the U.S. So the economy will probably even slow down even more in the long run. Is that what you're saying as well here?
Yes, I think so. Unless the inflation rate has been just ceased for a little bit. Otherwise, that the Federal Reserve will not lower the interest rate, and interest rate remains high, so that will hurt the economic growth.
And also on a side note, as you know, we were looking at the news very recently that Elon Musk has also left the Trump's team.
Yes.
And so this became a really big news at the same time. We wanted to know that, do you think that after him leaving the team, it would also cause a huge impact on the economy in the U.S. in general as well?
Yes, because they have some rumors that because the President Trump's canceled the nomination of Mr. Isaacs, the served as administrator of NASA, because of Mr. Isaac is a very Isaac man. Actually, is a close friend of Elon Musk. and also involve a huge interest of this space benefit or something like that. So I think this is a trigger point for hopefully left the house, and also because they have a breakup because of the big beautiful bills.
Yes.
And because of Elon Musk said that cut the federal debt is very difficult. How can you just wasteful and discarding put forward the tax incentive proposal because of this budget? Altogether, probably that 4 billion next 10 years. That means that 1 year you need to spend about 400 billion US dollars or something like that. So it's a huge because of government. The top priority for the government is to cut the federal debt instead of putting more money on some of tax incentive proposals. But on the other hand, from the Trump's viewpoints, that because his Supreme Court has been dropping, so he need to put forward a tax incentive proposal to boost business confidence, and then just gain ground on the opinion poll because and then they perhaps win the hopefully he can win the midterm election for next October. Otherwise, he will be slam dunk or something like that. Yep.
And I also wanted to, I'm a little bit curious about this because there's so many events that's going on during this 90-day pause. So after the 90-day pause, which, the tariff will resume, do you think there's going to be a big change compared to before, or do you think the change will just be very minor?
I think depends on which every country's efforts, because I think the Trump start give you an examiner report or something that you need to pay the price. If you promise that you lower your import tariff, or you make a lot of investment for the U.S. country, or you do a lot of military purchase or something like that. If you score in this test, you will just lower your tariff. Otherwise, you will remain the same tariff.
Mm-hmm. I think this really echoes back to, based on what you said earlier, we can
Yes.
echo back to Taiwan because right now, Taiwan recently, its full year economic growth forecast is 3.1%. That's not even, it's
Yes.
barely even holding up to 3%. But it is also very important to see that, like for the first half of our
Yes.
economy, it's pretty good. It's doing pretty well, probably around like 5 to 6%. But then for the second half, the estimate is only a growth by 1%. So what do you think is the major disconnect or major factor here?
Because in the first half is because I think because people worry about the tariff, so they prepare the raw materials, some key components in advance, and also because of the fever of artificial intelligence.
Okay.
So I think the first half Taiwan actually is the export is really hot, doing
Right.
quite well. But in the second half, because of the buffer time for 90 days is start from the July 8th. That means the damage will start from the second half. A lot of uncertainties involved, like how to spread out how to just share the tariff between the exporter and importers, or some how meet the deadline or some shipment or something like that. So a lot of uncertainties involved. So the second half of the year actually start a lot of uncertainty.
So if this is the point for the second half of the year, there probably will be a lot of uncertainties compared to
Yes.
the first half. What kind of industries do you think will probably be hit the hardest?
I think because Taiwan's industry, if they export to the States with a large percentage, like for instance, like AI chips or AI servers, or some of the automobile parts, or some of machine tools. But some of this is because they have a lot of bargaining power with the importers. So probably that they can pass the tariff onto the customers of the importers. So their damage were not as much as expected. But on the other hand, some of traditional industries, they have been suffering all years, like they have been suffering for the Japanese yen's depreciation, because Japanese products actually is better quality, but with the same price with Taiwan, and also China's overcapacity and dumping. And also right now it's new Taiwan dollars appreciation as well as a reciprocal tariff. So I think the traditional will be hit hard by Trump's policy.
And if we're looking, so you're saying that for traditional industries will probably be hit the hardest. So for the second half, which we're facing into right now, diving into, knowing this in mind, how do you think Taiwan should react to this, or is there any preparation that they can make in order to make sure that the economic growth will not be growing too slowly than expected, as we're seeing from the table?
Yeah, I think government actually formulates some of our policies, like low interest loans, and in the short term, low interest loan subsidy and something else. And also in the long term, they would just offer some of R&D and incentives credit or some personal training credit to help this industry can break through this safeguard from this crisis or something like that.
But you think that for the second half, the economic growth might be might be slower. It's just going to be temporary as well, right?
I'm not sure, but that depends on what kind of tariff rate, reciprocal tariff rate will be let. But even though it's 10%, because we need to pay a lot of price for the bargaining process, because Taiwan actually is that we promise that foreign direct investment in the States for the semiconductors, and we need to do a lot of military procurements, and also we lower the interest rate, lower the tariff rate for the U.S. Imports or something like that. You need to pay a lot of prices. So I think Taiwan need to have some mega strategy to breathe through that crisis.
Okay, speaking of mega strategy, we will come back to that a little bit later because I wanted to talk a little bit more about the strategy that you were saying in a couple of conferences that you attended before for Taiwan and how we can deal with this. But I want to circle back to the U.S. for a little bit more here. As we can see earlier from the OECD report, we can see the economic outlook for the U.S. It's pretty poor. But however, there is actually, a reduction in the U.S. trade deficit that's being announced by the U.S. Department of Commerce just a while ago. So do you think that this reduction of the trade deficit is probably good news for the U.S., but at the same time, it's also just for temporary? Do you agree with that?
I think so, because I think probably it's that for the temporary, because right now it's the first half is a lot of uncertainties. We talk about how tariff free will be sharing between the export and import. So another uncertainty. So I think the U.S. imports is down a little bit, but in the long term, I think because from the perspective of U.S. imports, because of a tariff rate, it will allow inflation. So price will mark up, so will just damage the consumer confidence. So the imports will decrease, as well as that some of the foreign exporters, they probably start diversify the export market. They find the alternative market of the States. So I think the U.S. imports will down a little bit.
Okay.
So I think in the long term exports will be the decline of the degree of the U.S. Import decline will be much more than the decline of the exports.
But even after the 90-day pause period, do you still also think that this will be the case, or there will probably be a change in the U.S. trade?
Yeah, I think the U.S. trade deficit certainly have a high possibility of decrease because of diversified export market, and also because the markup increase, so will damage the consumer's confidence.
And also, I wanted to also talk a little bit between the two superpowers. As we see the U.S. and Chinese leaders, they also had a phone call and exchanged invitations for the state visits. So how do you think that this phone call or this conversation or dialogue could affect the future U.S. tariff policies?
Yes, I think probably that because of in terms of sign, because of Trump and Xi Jinping also both are Gemini.
Right.
Gemini is innovative,
right,
flexible, changeable. So, but they are not very stubborn or something like that. So they will find way out. And besides that, I think the Japanese, the U.S. and China have their weak spot.
Okay.
They have weakness in terms of U.S. the states because they have a huge debt problems and the interest need to pay huge interest rate. And from the viewpoint of the China's, they have a party bubbles, local government, debt crisis. So they have a weaker spot. So I think they will just find a way out instead of two trains crashes.
Okay, so now I wanted to circle back to Taiwan that we just mentioned earlier. I like it a lot when you use the phrase mega strategy. So the Trump administration has imposed a 32% reciprocal tariff on Taiwan. As we mentioned earlier, right now it is currently on a 90-day pause, which is set to end on July 8. Now, the Taiwanese government recently has completed the first round of negotiations with the U.S., and it seems like the U.S., there is still going to be expected impose a tariff reciprocal, but probably at least 10%. Now, at this point of time, I think Dr. Wang mentioned earlier, it is very important for compromise and also for concession, which probably would include lowering the tariffs, increasing U.S. investment, or even purchasing military equipment from the U.S. So regarding these concessions that we were talking about, we are seeing that Taiwan is in a predicament. So Dr. Wang, you also mentioned earlier in several forums that of this mega strategy. So when in terms of mega strategy, can you elaborate a little bit more on this? Is it like a Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan alliance? Work together, this probably could be a great time, a great opportunity to work together as alliance, and probably will even dominate the market in the US for the next 20 years. Can you elaborate a little bit more on this?
Okay, as far as I'm concerned, because of the Trump's tariff policy, they have goals, purpose, but without strategies. Because he imposed high tariff on China, but they will allow the inflation on the daily necessities and also some of life food like goods. So just allows the inflation. Then people will not support the policies. They cannot stick the policy in the end. So I think in 1990s, Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan, they helped China achieve the remarkable economic growth because Taiwan, we have low cost down strategies and we have a very sophisticated supply chain. And Japan, they have no materials training companies and have very advanced technologies. South Korea have like consumer electronics, steel, and DRAM, something like that. These three countries help China achieve remarkable economic growth. But the person who ties the bell, also the person who untie the bell, because if we want to just discourage China's companies, I think these two countries work together to just diminish China's companies. Because Taiwan, we can just help the states reindustrialize. Because if we just provide some daily necessity, we do a foreign direct investment, then can help states to reindustrialize, and they have substitutes for the daily necessities that will without the cost inflations. And also, they just because Taiwan is make a foreign direct investment in the states, they will not just provide more trade surplus to the states. So I think this is a win-win strategy because for the U.S., they have substitutes. If the Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan form the alliance, they do the investment in exchange for the low tariff. I think they can help U.S. to reindustrialize and also provide the necessary necessities and exchange for low tariff. And for Taiwan, is that because with low tariff, we can protect our traditional industry. And also because we have a first move advantage in the States, so we can monopolize, I think, probably that the U.S. market for the next 10 years or 20 years or something like that.
I think this is a very important argument, but at the same time, like 20 years ago when we're looking at how these three nations work together for China, but right now things have shifted a little bit here. So do you think if this is the point, it will actually create a greater geopolitical risk to Taiwan at the same time?
Yes, I think because these three countries have their like a weak spot. I think Japan is because tariff policies will affect the automobile, steel, something like that. South Korea also faces some problems, like because right now South Korea is a large trade deficit. Nation is China. So I think these three countries both have problems under the U.S. Tariff policy, and so they have more rooms for further cooperation.
Oh, I see. So you're saying that the kind of challenges that they're all facing together, it will have more room for them to also cooperate together. But again, if we circle back a little bit here, I feel like Taiwan, how can Taiwan be seen, or like try to participate meaningfully and also actively, especially when we know that sometimes Taiwan is being excluded from a lot of multilateral conversations, dialogues, or summits. So how do you think at this point of time, if Taiwan was to cooperate with these nations multilaterally, how can Taiwan be seen and participate more assertively and actively?
I think this make strategy should be propagandas, because through like some of talks with like AIT or something like that, because of Trump's tariff policy only have purpose without the strategies. Taiwan and Taiwan and Japan can provide strategies. So I think my proposition, I like to be propaganda through perhaps AIT or more talks or some conference. I think Taiwan and Japan have a historical good relationship. If the Taiwan and Japan can have a compromise, come have common understanding, then if we can form alliance, then South Korea will have more incentive pressure to join this. And I think finally, I think the Trump's administration to realize that this alliance can help U.S. to achieve reindustrialize.
But at the same time, I also a little bit curious, because I think this is a really good argument. But at the same time, as we see after Trump is being, like elected president for the second term, there's a lot of things about him that's going back and forth, back and forth. So I think a lot of countries also lost confidence in the U.S. So if all these nations or countries are to work together and to work with the U.S. for reindustrialization, do you think the countries will feel a little bit of sense of security to do that if they were to work together during the administration under Trump's leadership?
Yeah, I think probably that some countries lose the confidence on Trump's. So I think Trump need to make some of small efforts.
Okay.
I think otherwise, because you changeable, you will lose all the credit partners or something like that. But Taiwan offers big steps. We can form the alliance, probably a small baby step to achieve big efforts. Like we can just form alliance, and we just provide daily necessities and to seize the inflation because of the imposed high tariff on China's. And if we make some baby step, make some efforts, probably like convince the U.S. people that they can just achieve great effort without China's involvement or something like that.
So definitely there needs to be a lot more dialogues and conversations going on as well.
Yes.
But how do you think China is going to react to this?
Of course, they were not very happy about that, because they will try to disrupt this alliance.
Yeah.
But if we can just form the alliance, probably start more underground until you make some efforts, make some achievements, then we just announce it.
But again, I think this is the mega strategy that you were referring to. But positively speaking, this strategy may work, and there will be an alliance between South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. Now, let's say at this point of time, what if it doesn't work? Any other alternative strategy for Taiwan?
Yeah, I think we just take a outlook for Taiwan's future phenomena. I think if we don't make any strategies, Taiwan's high industry will just investment overseas. They will cause some of deindustrialization, part of the deindustrialization, and also because of the traditional industry will be hurt by the Trump's tariff policies. And follow that because of the traditional industry setback. I think the service industry will suffer as well because of the unemployment rate and also consumer confidence will down. So I think Taiwan should make some strategy. I think the first one is that if our high industry to invest in the States, we probably start design some policy for the two-way investment because we investment people go there, manpower go there, or some capital go there. We probably that we can just design some policy for the people can come back for the training and the capital market. We can also list in Taiwan's market and also list in NASDAQ market. We can use U.S. Financial capital to boost Taiwan's companies' competence. See, I think that in China, that there are a lot of companies listed in the NASDAQ Dow Jones and become the world-class companies. So I think Taiwan can do the same way. We can list in both Taiwan and NASDAQ market, use U.S. financial capital to boost Taiwan companies' confidence, competitiveness. See, like a lot of firms that list in the stock market, we can recruit more people. We can just probably merger and acquisition more U.S. firms, become the world-class people.
But how do you think we can do that? I mean, how do you think we can achieve that to get more of the U.S. capital, or even, have maybe some of the startups in Taiwan,
Yes.
let's say technology-wise, AI-wise, and then we can list in the U.S.
Yes.
How do you think, there must be some kind of barrier. How do we break that barrier to gain more of the capital and at the same time to have more companies from Taiwan to be listed in the U.S. stock market?
I think this is a long-term shot because right now we have suffering funds, right?
Yeah.
So the government design some policies. We can make more incentive because Taiwan's firm actually is that this is a way of foreign direct investment. I think the foreign direct investment can be the defensive or expansional. Right now it's an expansional foreign direct investment. We invest there. And also the government have some policies, help this local firm to register, list in the stock market. And then more and more firms to list. And then we get more connection with U.S. Capital market. And then people can come back to Taiwan for training. And
Right.
we just, the financial capital, just two-way movement or something like that. And we can upgrade our business model, everything. Taiwan become a more international connection.
Right.
Of course, we need to just get rid of some of double taxation between the Taiwan. Then people can just pay the tax in Taiwan or something like that. So I think Taiwan should more international connection, like Netherlands.
Right.
They become more nationalized, more internationalized, and people start work around the foreign countries, but they pay in Netherlands.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is kind of more like a loop or circle that bringing out talents and also circling
Yes.
back the U.S. Funds and also capitals back to Taiwan. Now, lastly, this is a great topic, but I also wanted to be a little bit more cautious here. As right now we are looking into kind of like a trade or tech war, but then the next step probably would be a currency and financial war. So what do you have any take on this? How do you think this might unfold?
I think Trump's is not a lot of credit. So I think in order to preserve the stability of U.S. currency or some bonds market or the stock market, he would do at any cost. So probably start a tech wars, the tariff wars, and then have currency war. Because why is that? Because right now U.S. currency is still even though down a little bit, but still very strong. But if the Asian currency is weak, right? How can he stop this trade deficit? So he definitely will force Asian currency to normalize, to appreciate. Then he can just reduce the trade deficit. And then besides that, probably that usual financial war, like sub-credit ratings, like wage about the interest rate spread, exchange rate difference, or something like to move around the like inflow, outflow the capitals, or some even the international payments like SWIFT system, something like that. I think Trump have a lot of policy tools besides of tariff wars.
So, our program is coming to an end and we talk a lot of topics today. Just one last question for you, and that is, there's a lot of events going on, whether it's the tariff reciprocals or, like the mega strategy that you just mentioned, or if there's any reshoring back and also an exchange of funds and also talents. What is your last advice for Taiwan at this point of time when everything is so mixed up together? What is the first step that we need to take in order to make sure that economic growth do not go down as much as we were possibly imagining?
I think on the status quo, if we don't do anything, perhaps that Taiwan's economic growth will going down,
right?
Because of this tariff war. So Taiwan is that if we need to look up, I think Taiwan need to have mega strategy. Like I think President Lai actually make a very nice move for the sovereign fund, but this sovereign fund needs to use to the right place,
right timing.
Right. Yeah, that's right. We need to this money go to some new areas and help the traditional industry to hook up with like AI or something like that, and then to pick up their companies. And also service industry need to industrialization, some deregulation, and to channel the more money to like healthcare, like medical tourism, to boost this service industry companies, and also help the local young generation to achieve higher salary.
Thank you, Dr. Wang, for your insights, and thank you very much for being with us here today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our show. If you like our program at Taiwan Talks, please go to our YouTube channel and hit subscribe. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.